if you will, of a two-tier system of higher education. This is not offering quality across the board. And I think that we particularly in public higher ed, ought to take a look at what the implications of this are. I happened to be here last night, and CNN was showing Ivory Tower, which is a wonderful documentary. It's mostly California, but it's about the MOOCs, and it's about how the very campuses where their faculty have developed and are stars in MOOCs do not offer them for credit. So at Stanford, you're not getting that course. At Harvard, you're not getting that course. At San Jose, yeah. Maybe at some of the SUNY schools, yeah. So I think it is it is taking the digital divide, if you will, flipping it and creating an educational divide. And that is not to say that people cannot get a good education through some online courses, but it does raise issues. I'm sorry, I went ahead of myself here. Sorry about that. Okay. We're talking about who takes the MOOCs, and that's something we haven't discovered. Shauna Jaggers at Columbia did a lot of research in online education, and what she found was in any online format, certain groups of people did not perform as well as they did in face-to-face classrooms. That would be students of color, underprepared students, and male students. And that was just in any kind of online course. That distinction and that difference increases with a MOOC setting. It may not be that those courses are not appropriate for some students. That's perfectly okay. I mean, we have that in a lot of arenas when we teach. Some things are not appropriate for some people. But the goal here, it seems to me, and it seems to most of my colleagues at the Campaign for the Future of Higher Ed, is to question why MOOCs in particular are targeting low income, underprepared, developing world, non-traditional students. And it concerns me when our public universities do that, as they're doing at SUNY, with the assumption that it's going to open it up. They're going to probably find that the same results that we see in the classroom in SUNY, which is an increase in foreign students who can afford the tuition, takes the place of the students in New York who would need aid to do so. Just a thought. I don't know. But I think that we are talking about a problem that goes beyond MOOCs, because hopefully they're on the way to a quiet death. And in terms of what they offer for credit-bearing educational courses, I think they have a role to play. I think it's a great idea for people who have interests and who have things they want to pursue. But I do believe we're looking at, when we talk about competence-based education, when we talk about accelerated degrees online, we're talking about tiering our educational system in a way that is new. We've always had community colleges, four-year colleges, universities. We have them in all of our systems. Actually, in New York, we have them together. In California, they're three separate systems. And in California, when the crunch hit, they had 400,000 community college students who couldn't get in the door. With this tuition raise, they're going to go back to that, I'm sure. You have a potential tuition raise. We just heard there's a potential tuition raise in SUNY. And our students can't afford it either. Anyway, I guess I digress, but it does bother me that the target is inevitably our low-income, underserved populations, the very people for whom this kind of public good, public higher education, is supposed to provide an opportunity, for lack of a better word. They also, MOOCs, have a problem for us. They represent a potential for unbundling our faculty work. You do not, and that's the big question, if you do own what you do when you do on Coursera. Someone else answers the questions. We saw this even with Open SUNY when it was presented to us. Well, no, we're going to outsource to this concierge service that will answer students' questions online 24/7. That's not a faculty member, it's not a staff member, and we will have students work with students who are all in the same course. It is a question, I'm almost done, I promise, that does threaten what we do, what our role is. It really does threaten to further create contingency in higher ed because you can piecework it out. I mean, higher ed becomes piecework, and it does, as I said, impact our intellectual property. I think that MOOCs as a promise never made it. I think it was a venture capitalist fast fail. I think you actually supported me on that, Anthony. I think they're relooking at that. And what we would ask you to do, the Campaign for the Future of Higher Education has this incredibly, I think, effective video that talks about MOOCs, their promises, and what's happened. It's 4 minutes. I don't know, Mike might have edited it down. And we have a series of working papers on MOOCs, looking at, and when you go on the presentation, which will be up, the links will take you right to every one of those papers. So while I'm here for UUP, I'm also here to invite you, because CUNY, PSC, is a member of the Campaign for the Future of Higher Education. I think we're over 100 organizations, which includes entire state systems of California, Minnesota, Michigan, Florida, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maine, Vermont, and it goes on. Ohio. We would invite you to go to the website. We would invite you to join. It costs nothing. There is no dues. There is no there. It's purely virtual. We do have 2 meetings a year. CUNY hosted one a year ago in January. We did one last May. We'll be in California this January. And these are the kind of issues that we found people across the country share concerns about. And I would answer questions if you had any.
Any questions?
Jay Weiser, Baruch College.
I'm sorry, can you?
Sorry. Jay Weiser, Baruch College. You were saying the problem with MOOCs is tiering, but then you were saying that effectively the system right now is tiered, and you were noting, in fact, the very low graduation rates. So it isn't the question, so I think while you're making a good case that MOOCs are not the solution to the problem of educating less prepared students, that sort, but is there, is there a role in online for improving that somehow? Because right now, I think you can certainly argue that the traditional system is tiered as not doing a great job either, given graduation rates.
Well, I actually am going to answer the last thing you said first. I think graduation rates is an imposed metric that may or may not have anything to do with the students who go to public higher ed. In fact, the State University of New York has a graduation rate averaging 6 years, which is better than almost any in any state university system across the country. My experience at Old Westbury, and I'm pretty sure it's the experience of many people here in the CUNY system, was many of our students had to stop out to earn the money to come back the next semester, or somebody got sick and they had to do something like that. In other words, it's not necessarily a great correlation, graduation rate and the quality of an education. So I don't know that that's the problem. I think the problem is somewhat different. I think we have divested in public higher education. The state of New York has divested. Every state in the union has divested. Jerry Brown tried to put some more money back in. He did in California. And in fact, he argued against that tuition raise, which is really quite astounding. We will not be seeing Andrew Cuomo doing that, for sure. So I think the problem isn't that people don't graduate. It's that we do not invest in public higher education. I think that the the trickle-down effect of that divestment has impacted those who are on the bottom of the economic ladder the most, those who used to be the students we served who could come in and we could find a way to bring them back semester, and they'd stop a semester and come back. They can't do it, and they can't take the debt that accumulates with higher tuition. There's some work out there, and I heard you mention this, on ways to make at least the first 2 years of higher ed free. And we ought to really be thinking about that in public higher ed. We really should. I guess I didn't answer your question, but I think the metrics are wrong. And I think the performance-based funding that's coming down the pike is going to hurt our students the most.
Quick follow-up, which is that I believe a figure I just heard was that at CUNY, 60% of the students are going tuition-free, and yet graduation rates do not appear to be significantly better, and in fact may be worse than at SUNY, where people are paying tuition. So how does that affect your argument?
I'm sorry, you said they're not paying tuition?
You bet.
Seriously?
Yep. This is CUNY, yes.
I thought there was no longer free CUNY for...
With financial
with
aid.
financial aid. We have the same thing. It's the same thing. You
Okay,
have the
so
TAP award and
so then-
financial aid.
So then you're attributing dropouts to economic reasons and inability to pay tuition, even for people who are getting fully subsidized
Sure, because you
tuition.
still got to eat, and where are you going to live? Or maybe you got a family. It's just not cut and dried.
Peter Brass, City College. I have a question to the organization of MOOCs. I always wondered who answers the questions which students have. And you said that it's staff provided by the MOOC. Is there any control on the quality of these answers? I mean, if we leave our TAs alone to teach the course, then some pretty strange things happen.
I don't have an answer beyond the fact that what we saw at San Jose, that the answers were given by, they were graduate students, I believe, employed by Udacity, or at Udacity, Throne. Yeah. But at least when SUNY presented its Open SUNY, it was going to outsource from our professional staff to a concierge service that would be available 24 hours a day to answer questions, which was not one that belonged to us.
May I offer my two
Sure.
cents here? So I just want to use our experience in the MOOC that we offered at John Jay College. So in terms of answering questions, there are many different ways. So in our case, we have the professor and we have the TA, and we have the discussion forum. So students, we encourage students to do discussions in the discussion forum and asking questions, and our professor and the TA would respond to those discussions when they consider it's time to jump in to facilitate those discussions. And also, we have another very interesting way of doing the interactions, which is we have those weekly video briefings. So the TA and the professor would pick a lot of interesting questions, and they would have a discussion in our office, in our video studio, and we record that in response to the students. It really has been working very well, and is pretty interactive in that way.
How many people are enrolled?
So we have, our enrollments were about 1,000 students, a little bit over. We are now closing the course. Now it's the last week.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Laura Novak, and I'm from the College of Staten Island. My questions are about the measurements, the metrics. I think I agree with you that the measurements are not measuring perhaps are not measuring what we want to know. For example, in a MOOC that doesn't charge tuition, we're measuring completion of the course as success. And I think that's incorrect. I'm going to ask your opinion. If the purpose of the course is to encourage learning, the course might be very successful in the fact that they are encouraging learning. if the students don't want to take a final exam, that doesn't mean they didn't learn anything. And it doesn't even mean they dropped out. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that I can only rely on the data that I have in front of me. I don't want to make pronouncements about that. I think that you're also talking about possibly multiple different groups of students. If I'm doing a MOOC and it's because I'm interested, it doesn't matter if I finish it. I have a PhD. I don't need a degree. If the MOOC is for me to get college credit and to graduate, it does matter. Two things matter. Three, maybe more. Does matter if I complete it. Otherwise, I paid for something, just like when you don't complete a course. It does matter if I learn something, and how, having been in a classroom for a lot of years, how we measure what our students learn varies depending on the subject. I'm in sociology. It doesn't, what I teach doesn't necessarily lend itself to a multiple choice exam. I look for papers and I look for argument and critical thinking. So the student may take the course and learn and not graduate, but that student still owes the money for the tuition. I mean, I don't know that that's MOOC related. I think that's more student related, whatever type of course it is. And maybe I'm not answering what you're asking me.
My point is for courses that are free and not for credit, which the measurements show that they are extremely unsuccessful because the people don't take the final exam and finish it. So that's one point. And now I have a different point that has always bothered me, and that is the metric of success of students finishing a degree in 6 years. I went to school when tuition was free, and there was no rush to finish in 6 years. Working students took 2 courses at night, and it took them a long time to finish. And I think they learned more. Now, the way CUNY is, the way the tuition is set up, they have to finish quickly or they're going to lose their financial aid. And worse than that, if they take more than 15, 16 credits, it doesn't cost them anymore. So in my school, they're taking a tremendous number of credits. And we're measuring this as a success. But I don't think they're learning as much. So I don't hear much discussion of this issue. And I'm bringing it up to you. Perhaps you have some opinion or knowledge about the subject.
Well, I don't know much knowledge, but I do have an opinion, and you know, and I have a problem given where I came from. My father went to CUNY, to City College. He made up an address in the Bronx because he couldn't afford to go to school. But your students, my students, are the same students, and what they're looking for is they got to have the credential. There's a tremendous, the pressure to do it in a short time pushes for that extra course load. And it's very hard to make the argument with the student that, no, you really can't do it because it's going to bite you in the end. I hear you. But it goes back to the pressure to finish. That's why I have a real problem with the concept of performance-based funding. I think it doesn't talk about student-faculty ratio. It doesn't talk about how many students work. It doesn't talk about how many students have families. It doesn't talk about how many full-time and contingent faculty are available to those students when they take courses. I share your concern, is what I'm trying to say. We got to go?
Yeah, let's take a question from this side.
Yeah, Steve London, Brooklyn College, PSC. I'd like to make a comment about San Jose, and it hopefully will clarify some of what has been asked about who answers questions. I think one of the ideas in the San Jose experiment, as well as what happens elsewhere, is that there was a conscious effort to make San Jose an exemplar.
they used graduate students from Stanford to answer questions and to be TAs, essentially. Now, that's the thought was, if we can make this work, and you have some real control over who's answering questions, that would be, and people who answer the questions have some quality control, then we can make it work here. We can say, yay, MOOCs work. This was a strategy that was used to charter movement. A lot of the first charters, when they came out in Minnesota, were promoted as exemplars. They were innovative. They put a lot of resources into them. The people who were engaged were motivated, had a lot of quality. There was a lot of quality control, and they showed real improvements. What happens once that it goes beyond the exemplar? The exemplar is held out as, see, this is what you can do. And then when it gets put out on a mass model, what happens is the quality control goes, the resources go, especially when it's done by for-profit entities. So I think we have to be careful and make a clear distinction between the research that comes out based on exemplars and how that will be rolled out in under-resourced institutions. And I think this goes to the point that was made earlier about the disinvestment in CUNY and in SUNY. It's not so much, it's not only what the students are paying or not paying for tuition, but it's the fact, as we all know, that we don't have the resources available. We don't have our full-time faculty. It's not as well compensated as it should be. We have heavy course loads. Of course, there's a lot of contingent faculty. And so that's where the issue of resources comes in, and understand that MOOCs cannot replace an investment in higher education.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, I'm B. Lawrence Helft, Academic Director of the Online Degrees in Business at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. And I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you, and just to make sure that you made the point of MOOCs not being a representation of everything that's done online. And I wanted to take this opportunity to inform what I see as some of the key faculty at CUNY about a very important new fully online program that directly addresses one of the examples you gave, and that was nursing. So what we have at the moment is an RN to BS in nursing that's fully online through the CUNY School of Professional Studies. All of the students have an RN license. So they've gone through, very often, our community colleges and gotten an RN license. They are working nurses. We all know that there's an extreme shortage of nurses, but also educated nurses, and because nursing has become so complicated, we need nurses that are educated beyond the associate's degree. The work that is entailed in going from the RN to a BS is very often not the practical work, because they are working as nurses already. There is a practicum component. It is not virtual, so people should not worry that you're working on, a simulation, but they are working in a hospital or other setting. And if you think about CUNY, we have bachelor's degrees in nursing at various campuses, but there are not enough seats for all of the students that come from the associate's degree. So 1, not enough seats. 2, nurses work all kinds of shifts. They can't necessarily come to classes. 3, faculty that teach in the online BS are very often the same faculty that teach throughout CUNY campuses, and they're also working nurses. So we can think creatively about using online courses to advance fields, to meet needs of not only the students, but of society at large.
Thank you, and you're absolutely right. And I know we do the same in SUNY. We have 10,000 degree programs and growing, but they're not MOOC-based.
Hi, Karen Lundstrom, New York City College of Technology. I direct instructional technology there. Actually, I was going to ask about MOOCs, but the question was answered in terms of the quality controls and some of it being corporate generated and such. But you did bring one thing up that concerns me. And you said you had research you had read from, I guess it was from Teachers College, you might have mentioned, that people of color and male students do poorly online.
They do worse online than they do in class, and it's Shauna Jagger's research. I have the citation here if you need it.
I question what kind of technology was used, because we have like engineering students. My college is more male, and a lot of people of color. And I switched them over to Blackboard Collaborate in the engineering school, and they're doing very well. And they were doing horrendously on discussion boards. So guys didn't want to sit there
That's an
typing
interesting
all day,
point, yeah.
But once we put them on Collaborate, and they were using application sharing and doing different types of technology, they love it.
That's great.
And we had that with the nursing department as well, and those are female students. So we had, it's just, I question if there's different types of technology. I always worry when I hear blanket statements made,
Yeah.
because there's so many times, I've been like working on this for a long time now, and so many say, oh, you can't do that. And it's even math when I hear that. I remember when I first came here, there was a math professor over at Baruch who ran an online course, and he had adjuncts in there. It was like a MOOC, and he had it done on Blackboard, and he broke it out into groups and everything. He said he loved doing it, and it did well. So I just wonder if, before we make any statements, I'll check the research you said.
Sure.
But
The link is in the PowerPoint. When it goes up, you can just link right to it.
okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank